Okay, so we're going to start this screen recording on how to create a banner. So what I've done here is I opened a new file, made a new file. You can see if I go under image and I look at canvas size, I've made it a 7x3 canvas, and it has a transparent background. I also pre-selected some files, some images that I am going to want to use. So I've put them here opened on my desktop just by opening in different tabs. So I'm going to add for myself a new layer just because I like to start up on top. And I'm going to use my move tool, the very top left on the toolbar, and drag this first picture, this header of HBU, down into my layer palette. So here it is right here. Now let me also remind you, so I can go under window and I'm going to go to navigator because I'm seeing 100% right here, seeing this little window right here, and sometimes it helps me to see a different perspective, you know, how much of it, what does it really look like. So at 27% or whatever. So anyway, I have this file, and on this layer, what I'm trying to do here is create a single image out of multiple images. So I think you'll get the hang of it after you watch this a little bit. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this image on this layer, so I'm sure I'm clicked on layer 3. I'm going to edit, free transform. I'm going to enlarge it some, but I have to be careful, right? Because I don't want it to pixelate too much. And I'm going to, you see how I'm on a corner, if I click and do some of this, I can rotate and then kind of move this off to the side a little bit. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to place it by just clicking back on the apply tool at the top, or the move tool. So now I have this on my beginning of my banner. So a little picture piece of HBU. Now that I've used this picture, I'm going to close it so I don't have to look at it again. And here is another picture that I would like to try to, whoops, I don't really want it up that way. So now I'm going to take this picture of Hinton, and I'm going to use my move tool, click and drag it down, click and drag it down. So now it's on this layer 4. I'm going to edit, free transform, and what I have found is I like it better if I've got kind of oversized images bleeding off the page. Okay, so I don't want anything totally, you know, squarely placed onto my page. So I'm going to place that by clicking my top left button, which is the move tool, apply it, and I can change it all, you know, as I want. But now I've used this Hinton picture, so I'm going to close it. Let's see. I had a picture, yes, of Beelan right here. So I'm going to click and move it over. And of course, it's going to drop it onto a new layer. And actually, so I'm going to close that one out now that I've used it. I like, since it has Hinton in here anyways, I think I'm going to go ahead and move that down a layer so that this is on top. Now I'm going to also edit, free transform, But what I'm going to hope to do here, well, I don't know that that's going to do it. Let's see. Maybe that's a little better. Apply. And actually, I think what I'm going to do on this one is I can go into this elliptical marquee tool, and on that layer, okay, this is where I have my Beeline piece, and I'm going to move this up some with my arrow key. Do you see how I'm doing that? Now let me show you some of the things we can do. We can change the feathering. So let's say I want to feather. What this is going to do is kind of blur the edges to 20 pixels. And I have to say I might have to select again, since I may have to do it again. We'll see. Then I'm going to select inverse, and then I'm going to hit delete. Okay. So when I hit delete, do you see how it did kind of change my picture? But it didn't feather it. So let's do this again. Let's select, deselect. Okay, now I'm going to select this time with my 20 pixel feather already set. So let's just see how that looks here. I'm going to move it up a little bit just so you can get the feel for what's happening here. And now I'm going to select inverse. Now when I hit delete, do you see how it gets a soft feathery edge? So that's what I'm trying to do, is soften up some of my edges on this. So I'm going to select, deselect. Now I can move here. Now notice I didn't see all that before, but that's what was in the picture. So see back over here. So if whatever you don't see, you can't control. So I may need to come back in over here and get some of this. Oops, that just took it all away. So I didn't want to do that. Let's see. Here's my layer right here. So I'm moving my Hinton guy over here. Anyway, I'm trying to come up with different ways to show what HBU is all about. And I actually had a picture somewhere. Maybe this is it over here. I need to open it, I guess. So I'm going to do a file open. There's a picture of books. So now I'm going to drag my books over here. And when I do that, I can close it. And my books is on layer 6, I think. Remember, you can always go in and click on the layers and rename it if you want to, so that you know what's on each if you need to. I'm going to, instead right here, free transform. And apply it. And actually, maybe I'll free transform. like this. Now, here's the thing I have just learned over time. Everything looks better if it's big and oversized and you don't see all the particular pictures. So I'm going to come back in over here on layer 4. I need some big stuff over here. So I'm going to just edit, free transform. Now remember, I'm doing this so fast. I'm just really trying to fill the space. Okay. And I do think I'm going to take my books right here on this layer, and I'm going to try to soften the edges. So remember to try to soften the edge of a picture like I did over here with the Beelin Chapel. I'm going to choose this. Actually, I think I'll do a rectangular something here. Come at it like this. I'm going to select the inverse. Oops. No, I have to stop. Here's what I realized. My pixels is not set yet. You really want to set your feather pixels first. So I'm going to say 20 px. Now I'm going to select over here this square. So I'm going to come back over here to my drawing. You see how I'm trying to get a good rectangle? Then I'm going to select inverse and hit my delete key. So now when I deselect, can you see it's a little fuzzier on the edge? So now when I edit, free transform, and I'm going to try to pull this up like that, I think I'm going to pull this in. And even, I don't really like the angle it's at. I'm going to do that. Now, I know that you're thinking, this is pretty ugly, Wilson. What are you doing? The things will begin to change here in just a second. So I'm going to, one more time, try to increase the size of let's see the edge of this. There it is. Just so that it's filled in. Okay. We can be perfectionists later. All right, so everything is at about the same opacity, I will tell you. It's at about the same, this book is bothering me. I'm going to move this down here, and I'm going to take this. Let's see if I can move it. Let's make it a little bigger. Okay. So I've just applied a bunch of pictures. All right. Now I can go in and double click on a layer if I want and change the opacity so that it is more see-through if that's what I want to do. Or I can move things on top of or behind. So if I decide I want these books to be underneath something, you know, I can drag and move things around. I think, I'm going to see if I can get rid of this real quick. I don't know what layer that's on. Okay, let's just keep going. All right, so anyway, you'll mess with this for as long as you want. Now, here's what I'm trying to do. I want to make these all seem to be a single image, and there is a real harsh line I can see right here. I'm not sure how much I like that. I may have to mess with that some. But what I want to do is come to the very top of this, and I'm going to add a new layer. I'm going to make my feather this time 0 because I want kind of a harsh line. I'm going to put a brand new layer on top of this. And I'm going to fill it with a color. So let's see about maybe a HBU blue. Remember, get your paint bucket, find it. I'm going to paint on top. So now everything is this blue. All right, and then I select, deselect. Now I can go on this same layer and cut out. So I'm going to do an insert kind of. So I'm on the exact layer where I painted blue. Now I'm going to hit delete. And so now I have this frame, select, deselect, on the picture. This layer 8 is my frame. So I'm going to double click that. And there are some things I can do to this to give some depth. So I can contour, I can give an inner or outer glow. I like the drop shadow piece to it. But you can play with some of these things and see what's happening over here. If you wanted to add a different color onto it, you can do that. So I've got this text right here. So I could also, if I wanted to, come up and add a new layer to that, just right inside of it. And maybe I want to have a little bit of masking over this. So down here I'm going to switch colors. I'm going to now paint some white on here, right? But I'm going to change the opacity of that so it's just a little softening. So do you see how everything just went down? So I can turn it off. Here's the bright, vivid. Here's the little bit lighter, muted color. And I can mess with that a little bit more. But now maybe what I want to do is put a title on it. So I'm now going to select, deselect. I'm going to add my text piece. And I'm going to call this Hinton. Of course, if you recall when we talked about logos, I really don't like to do a whole word of the exact same font, right? So you'll just have to, because I'm trying to do this fast, you know, bear with me a little bit. But let's say I'm going to make it, actually I'm going to say, let's make it So here's my Hinton. And actually, let's highlight the text. Make it blue. And then I'm going to do a new layer with text. And maybe I'll do highlights as if we're going to do this for our newsletter, right? Move Hinton up just a bit. And on each of these, I think what it needs is a drop shadow on, and you can change, you know, the angle and the distance and how much drop shadow you're going to add. So I'm going to make this an 81, Hinton, and then on highlights, double click, make its drop shadow distance an 81. So that it stands up and out a little bit. So you get the illusion of, you know, or maybe it needs to say HBU or whatever it's going to do. But what I want you to see is that we're trying to use multiple images and layers together, but to create a single picture, which would be the banner. So this is not the best job I've ever done, and we'll look at some samples. If you go look in the sample section, you can see some others that have been done. In fact, this, I think, you know, you can come in here and give it all kinds of different effects. So you'll want to play with that a little bit. Adding that white around it helps a lot. Helps it stand out a little bit more. So have some fun with these effects and see if you can create a banner that you're going to want to use for your newsletter. When you finish, you're going to want to save as. Of course, remember, you want to save it as a PSD file so it's editable later and keep the layers on it. But you also will want to save it as a final picture. So I would say JPEG will work nicely because you don't really need it to be see-through at all. So the JPEG will also give you some compression, make it a little bit smaller. I usually leave it at a pretty high quality resolution. And this is how you will work to create your banner for your newsletter. So I hope you've enjoyed this and play around. You're not going to get it right the first time, but keep playing. So your banner will be due on Sunday.